Kitco News, special coverage of the New Orleans Investment Conference, is brought to you by Uranium Energy Corp and U.S. Gold Mining.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Kitco News. I'm Jeremy Safran. We are on location for the 50th anniversary of the New Orleans Investment Conference here. What a beautiful day it is. Thank you for joining us. We're going to jump right into it with countries prioritizing energy security and reducing carbon emissions. The uranium market is continuing to capture headlines. Nuclear energy is increasingly seen as a critical piece of the green energy puzzle, but with geopolitical tensions and supply constraints in play, the question remains, can the uranium market keep up with the growing demand? Here to dive into the uranium market is Scott Melbye. Scott is the Executive VP at Uranium Energy Corp, or UEC. Welcome to the program, Scott. Great to see you.
It's great to be with you.
Listen, there's so many things that we need to get into. I mean, uranium prices are obviously climbing again, this time following a move by Russia temporarily restricting enriched uranium exports to the U.S. Let's talk about the macro environment and how much it's changed just over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, if you just looked at the nuts and bolts of supply and demand, we're already going into this period of enormous growth and acceptance of nuclear power in a significant deficit. Over 50 million pounds deficit between what the world consumes presently and what we're producing. Mm-hmm. That never was a problem in our industry when we had excess inventories and secondary supplies. But the drawdown on that inventory that's occurred in recent years has got us to a point where we need new mine production. And it's not easy or quick to bring on new uranium mines. So with demand increasing, there's an ever increasing need for new mine production. And some companies like UEC are actively engaged in that, but we need a lot more mines, particularly in the Western world, to offset some of the geopolitical risks.
Yeah, the geopolitical risks are huge. I mean, the move by Russia, the world's largest supplier of enriched uranium, was kind of a tit for tat to the U.S., banning their imports. President Joe Biden signed the legislation back in May, but it allows the shipments to continue until 2028 under a system of waivers. So, I mean, what does this look like for you? How are prices going to react to this news?
Yeah, listen, it took 2.5 years for the U.S. to ban Russian uranium imports, but we finally got that through the Congress early this year. It's significant because 25% of the uranium enrichment we use in the United States for 20% of our electricity comes from Russia, but an even greater reliance on Russia, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan to about 50% of our uranium needs. That was a dependency that was always fraught with risk. We've now addressed that with the ban and revitalizing our domestic fuel cycle. Putin had threatened and then finally announced a week ago that he's going to take a retaliatory action and ban or basically embargo us on uranium imports, even in this sort of period where there are waivered quantities allowed to come into the United States. So again, this just couldn't emphasize more the importance to have a robust, vital domestic fuel cycle of uranium conversion enrichment. So we're not dependent on countries like Russia and certainly shouldn't fall dependent on China.
Yeah. To your point, I mean, Russia controls staggering 44% of the world's uranium capacity in terms of enrichment. So, you know, if these sanctions come to play, I mean, what's going to happen to the market? How behind are we?
Yeah, I have full confidence that all the nuclear power plants in the United States will continue to be fueled. But to those utilities that were strategic in nature and signed contracts and got out ahead of this, or maybe didn't rely on Russian uranium so much, they're in a good position. I think some utilities that went heavily into the Russian supply are going to have to really step up, and the market will respond to it with higher prices. We've already seen prices breach $100 a pound earlier this year. So expect uranium prices to remain high and probably increase much more from where they are today.
Yeah, well, I mean, well said, because UEC is obviously one of the largest producers in the world. I mean, you guys are doing an outstanding job. With all the momentum behind this market right now, you are talking in Wyoming to, I know you're a partnership with the SMRs with Bill Gates. Talk to me a little bit about the opportunity just stateside.
Yeah, listen, as if the green energy transition wasn't a big enough driver for nuclear power, we now have just the need for energy hitting the developed world. Our electrified society with electric vehicles, data centers, and particularly the power computing required by AI applications and chips are really driving the need for more power generation. With the election of Donald Trump this month, we've now seen America kind of taking a new posture towards energy dominance, and that probably is coming at a very good time. Mm-hmm. And I think for our grid, that means a heavy reliance on natural gas and nuclear to do the heavy lifting. tech companies like Microsoft, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Oracle are all turning to nuclear power, or whether it's buying capacity off of existing nuclear power plants or building new small modular reactors. So we not only have to supply the existing large reactors that we have on the grid or that are under construction, but the next wave of small modular and advanced reactors that are coming on, like we're seeing in Wyoming with TerraPower.
Right, yeah. It's been fascinating to watch the destigmatization campaign around uranium. I mean, I spoke to you last at PDAC in Toronto. Yep. And we were just about there. It seems like we are there now. People are starting to understand that we are in an energy crisis. From your standpoint, what got us here? Was it just a lack of mines? I mean, could we get enough online?
Yeah, listen, I don't think we've had increasing electricity energy demand in the United States since the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. The only additional capacity that we've built on the grid has been wind and solar due to the subsidies. And that's fine, but these are intermittent power sources that run 25 to 30% of the time. Now that we have very huge demand increases from data centers and EVs, we need baseload 24/7 power. And I think that's the realization that the political left has realized, hey, we need nuclear for the carbon-free baseload energy to work alongside wind and solar. I think to the political right, it's nuclear is an abundant, affordable, resilient, reliable piece of power in the energy mix, in an energy abundance strategy.
So is it just a matter of people going and restarting these old mines then and trying to, get uranium going?
Those are the lucky ones. Yeah. UEC has the existing infrastructure in Texas and Wyoming to go in and restart mines, and we, as we did in Wyoming earlier this summer, and we'll be doing in Texas next year. Those mines were already permitted, licensed, and much of the infrastructure already in place. So it's just talking about incremental wellfield construction to ramp our production up to 5, 6, 7 million pounds a year in the U.S. by the end of the decade. There are a couple other mines around the world that are restarts of existing operations. That's the low-hanging fruit. We now need 5 or 6 additional mines coming from Canada, the United States, Australia, parts of Africa. Some of these mines are not in the most geopolitically safe jurisdictions like Niger, or production from Kazakhstan, which is really now being consumed by Chinese and Russian interests for their own needs. So we can't rely on Kazakhstan, which is the largest producer in the world today. We're going to have to rely more on North America.
Yeah, well, that's my curiosity, because, I mean, how do you see President-elect Donald Trump's America First security stance provide support to the uranium market? I mean, it doesn't sound like he's going to be going to other jurisdictions.
No, he, in his first term, he was behind the establishment of the Nuclear Fuel Working Group, which concluded, was a multi-agency and department working group that concluded that the need for a resilient, robust American nuclear fuel cycle, a uranium industry that we can rely on, is not only in our energy interests, but it's also a national security concern. So we would expect that President Trump will continue those policies, and I think where he can really help is in the licensing and permitting of new mines and reducing the regulatory red tape so we can produce more energy here at home.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk, to your point, he's been an advocate inside of the uranium market as well. I mean, it takes a lot of energy to get Tesla going. Do you think that this stance is going to historically change the U.S.? Are we back in the uranium market?
We really are, and I think we have to realize that with a grid that's powered by natural gas and nuclear going forward, we have the existing fleet of nuclear power plants, but that next generation of small modular and micro reactors, I think that will revolutionize the way energy is generated and distributed, not only in the United States, but across the globe. And so America can really be a leader in that. We have technologies like TerraPower, X-Energy, GE Hitachi, NuScale that can be the leaders and really not only here at home, but to Central Europe, Asia, where we can be export leaders in nuclear technology.
Crazy. I mean, it's coming quick, January, and obviously we have 4 years. So give me your outlook. I mean, no one has a crystal ball here, but what are your thoughts going into these next 4 years? Where is your company going to be going?
Yeah, so we have become the fastest growing uranium company in the world with this $1 billion investments that we've made in the last 4 or 5 years. That has tripled more than tripled our resources to close to 500 million pounds It's more than quadrupled our licensed capacity to 12 million pounds. So the goal for us is to ramp up these operations. Wyoming is in production now and ramping up. Texas will be doing the same next year. We'll be coming back to Wyoming to the Sweetwater assets in year 3 or 4 to bring that on. And then by 2030, looking to advance Rough Rider, which is a 7 million pound a year producer, 61 million pound produced at that deposit.
I got to ask you more about it. I mean, if we have some Canadian fans watching Kitco News, we know that the Rough Riders are the CFL team of Saskatchewan. You and I know it well. Talk to me a little bit about that asset. I mean, I know that you were genuinely excited about it. It's massive.
Yeah, so we completed an economic study just this month that concluded that this project has $1 billion NPV with a 40% internal rate of return, 1.4-year payback. Again, about 6.8 million pounds life of mine production, $20.40 all-in sustaining cost. This is one of the world's great assets, and that net present value of $1 billion, I don't think is really fully valued within UEC yet. We acquired it from Rio Tinto for $140 million less than 2 years ago. It had previously been acquired by Rio Tinto for $600 million plus. So we have a really world-class asset there, and the thought of being able to produce from Texas, Wyoming, and Saskatchewan and be the leading North American diversified producer is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we keep talking about these geopolitical aspects. Donald Trump, even with his America First stance in terms of this, very friendly to Canadian waters. I mean, obviously, that will be a partnership that'll never go away, even with tariffs. Nothing concerned there that it's, let's just do American.
Yeah, I'm not concerned because I think, the global nuclear fuel markets have really divided under a BRICS or an East versus West. So you have Russia and China. India, they have Kazakhstan. Well, the West, Western Europe, UK, North America, we're fortunate to have Canada and the United States. And so while the US needs to produce more uranium to be less reliant on imported sources, I think we have to look at it as a Western market, and UEC can be a reliable supplier to utilities in Europe and elsewhere. And I think Canadian supplies will continue to be and should be one of the largest sources of imports into the United States, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, well said. Okay, back in February, as you mentioned, we saw that $100 uranium price. Why is it not caught up to equities?
Yeah, it's amazing. We went. I think we went so high, blowing through $100 a pound, and then coming back and really finding resistance at the high $70 per pound level. I see that as very positive because I think the market just went up so quickly, so fast. It needed to find a consolidation, find a base, and I think we're there where the next leg up with a 50 million pound deficit and the need for new mine production and very little inventories available to fill that gap. We're going to see significantly higher uranium prices, if not, by the end of the year, I think we'll be trending back up, but certainly in the new year, there are a lot of utility unfilled needs that need to be contracted for, so I won't give you a prediction of how high the uranium price goes next year, but it has a 1 in front of it.
Oh, you heard it here
first.
And it's 3 digits. And it's 3 digits. So we'll get a little hint. Okay, I have to ask you, I know we both just arrived at this wonderful conference, but it almost seems like the investment sentiment is shifted. I mean, I've been talking about all-time highs on the gold front. Silver still busted through $31, $32. Uranium is now the new play. Are people excited?
They really are. Listen, we have so many happy investors here, and it's really great to see those that believed in the UEC story and hung in there or have just come into the uranium investing in recent months. It's very exciting to see them seeing already significant gains, but it's still very early. On the institutional side, because UEC is now a $3 billion plus market cap, we trade, I think, the second most liquid traded uranium equity. We're traded on the NYSE, almost 9 million shares a day. We're getting into the portfolios of the big institutions. For example, Norges Bank out of Norway, the sovereign wealth fund, took a 5% stake in us, and other big institutions are taking note. And why not? We have all of our production ahead of us. We have all-in costs in the United States of $40 a pound in an $80, $90, $100 market. And our contract book is completely unhedged. That's really important. We didn't sign contracts over the last 6 years that would give us legacy pricing that could be half of what the current market price is today. So investors will get the full exposure to the uranium price going forward.
Scott Melbye, Executive VP of course, Uranium Energy Corp, joining us here at the New Orleans conference. It's the 50th anniversary. We'll be celebrating with Brian later. Join us. We're going to have great guests coming up all week long. I'm Jeremy Safran for all of us here at Kitco News. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next time.
Kitco News, special coverage of the New Orleans Investment Conference, is brought to you by Uranium Energy Corp and U.S. Gold Mining.